Are most of your team decisions data-driven, or have there been a lot of times prioritize personal feelings over data? It's a combination of both. Like, you know, I can give the players and like obviously Damon as well, like like analytically what's going on or how you've been doing on this map or what map. But if we watch a VOD and we think that we can hard counter a team, or if we watch something, or even if they just have a feeling on a specific map on how they've been feeling on it recently, you know, we can go with that too. The biggest thing for me is like, I want them to be confident no matter what. If they're more confident on the map and they're so willing to be more confident to say that, then 100%. Like, you see it a lot of times. I don't know if you've ever seen NFL coaches and like QBs basically talking about if they want to go for it on a 4th and 1 or like 4th and 2, whatever. And originally they're not, you know, going to try and go for it, but you know, the quarterback's like, I have a good feeling about this. Like, we can run this X, Y, Z. That type of confidence instills something in you where you're just like, okay, if you're this confident in it and you have a good play call, I'm fucking down to run it. You know what I mean? So the data is a good tool to work with, but it's not currently like the end all be all. And I don't think it ever really should. I think it should be 100% a good tool to work with, but I mean, there's some other data driven stuff that could be like, okay, we should do this pretty much each time, but something like a map pick going up against a certain team or something. Yeah. And I always think the data stuff is a good tool to work off of. But at the end of the day, I'm going to trust, you know, what my team's feeling. Like, I can give them all the information to help guide them in making a decision. But if they still have a feeling, like, bro, I'd rather you go with the feeling if you're that confident in it. You know what I mean? But regardless, I'm always going to give them the stuff that I have as a resource to inform them in the decision, you know? And that usually just goes with like map picks and stuff, honestly. For stuff like preparation and what we want to do on a certain map or something, that's always going to be a conversation that we're all going to be a part of. More or less giving them the tools and letting them use them as they see fit. Kind of. I mean, I'd guide them in a direction that I'm thinking, or like Damon might be thinking. But for the most part, like, I'm not gonna lie, the most part, in terms of like structure system wise, the stuff that like we're thinking is the stuff that like Ken is usually thinking anyway. Like the stuff that Damon and like I might talk about is probably stuff that Ken's already been preaching or thinking about as well, or like Ant, you know what I mean? Obviously there's little, you know, data driven stuff that I might see, but again, I'll use that as a resource or let them know. And the biggest thing is I'll let them know, and I'll have evidence of stuff VOD wise too. I think that's the biggest thing. If I just give them numbers, that's not going to mean anything. If you can give them numbers and show specific examples of, you know, us breaking on P2 fucking rewind or whatever, you know what I mean? Then that can inform the decision even more. Because they will end up seeing the trend that is happening. And from there, obviously, they might see something is wrong and can react off of that. I think it's really important just to, as a person who's like an analyst and a coach as well, like, just because you might have something data wise doesn't mean that it's always going to get through without something else required of it, if that makes sense. Like I can show, dude, there's been so many like examples. You show people numbers, it just goes through their head. If you show them numbers, show them examples to compare with the numbers, like really break it down, that's where you get the better results and the more of a chance for them to fully understand what you might be trying to bring to the table. A lot of people are visual learners. And just because you say, oh, we're getting broken on P2, okay, why are we getting broken on P2? That's the next step. You know what I'm saying? Say we have a 60% hold rate on P2 rewind, right? Okay. So what? Okay, cool. But why? You know what I mean? That's the next step. Now you figure out, okay, why is that happening? What situations are we getting into? Are we, you know, are we in situations where we're completely full holding the P2 and instantly getting broken? Is it a mixy rotation from the P1 where we're not really winning the rotation to begin with? There are so many questions you can be asking, and just because you have the, you know, a break percentage or something isn't going to give you the full story. You need context with it. So you figure out what the problem might be. You ask questions. Why? What's going on? What could we be doing better? What are other teams doing that don't have this problem doing? If we're comparing my team versus an opponent's team, I mean, like, you know, in general, you know, opponents are breaking on us 50% of the time. We're only breaking 30% of the time. Where's that 20%? Like, what is that difference? Where is that coming from? So comparing the number stuff with the VOD stuff is tremendously important. It's always context based. How confident are you? Jesus Christ, I butchered that. How are you confident stuff go through 1 year and out, or don't go through 1 year and out the other? Constantly reiterating it. Like a player like Ken, you tell him once, you know, it's going through his ear. You just got to make sure they're locked into what you're saying. If they're having a different conversation on the side and you bring it up, that's not a good way of bringing it up. Everyone, like, you need to be focused on what's going on, and obviously, again, giving them something to work with, giving them video proof of what might be going wrong. You can't just say, "Oh, you should have went on this route here, P2." That's gonna go at one. For some players, that's just gonna go through one ear and out the other. You show them constant clips of back-to-back hills of them not taking the route. That's going to live in their head for a little bit. Where I told my team from the get-go, I can give you everything you need, but if the implementation of things learned or talked about isn't followed through, then it doesn't matter. Also, the situational storm of this game makes it tough. Agreed, completely. And, you know, that definitely gets super frustrating sometimes if you keep talking about some things and it doesn't get fixed. You know, I deal with professionals, so it's a little bit easier for me to, you know, or for us to like hold people accountable and stuff like that. But if you're like working with amateurs or even lower level players, you got to remember the game is tough respawn wise. Obviously, it's a certain skill to account specific things that might happen, or recount specific things that might happen and what you might do in the situation. But, you know, the situations might not be completely the same. And someone might be acting off of different judgment based on something else that might be happening on the map, even though, you know, two players might be in the same position as something you talked about. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of decisions that you have to be making, and it's going to be a hard process sometimes. It's a very difficult game. I think Respawn is very underrated in terms of having to make the quick, correct decisions each time off of spawn.